There we go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, now we gotta text Brian.
Why can't I not have sound?
I thought you guys had this all figured out. Are you there?
Okay.
I think you're on mute again, Bradley.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
I'm trying to figure this out too, but I'm trying to do better than Brian did for a second. Now I've got it figured out now. So now for the next one, I'll just start a live one and add the person that's doing it. We got it figured out. So what's going on, Kevin?
Gosh. Sorry about that. I've got quite a bit of feedback. I'm driving back from Sulphur, Oklahoma, back to Kansas City. I don't know. I've got another 4 hours to drive.
I didn't see results. How'd you do?
It was okay. Got eighth in chicken. Ended up getting third in pork. One score away from perfect.
Wow.
Ribs and brisket were kind of a joke. So, but I finished 11th overall out of 25, so it was okay.
I can't believe the rib burn or whatever a 170 won it. That is nuts.
Yeah, the rib burn was pretty bad for scoring. I don't even tell you what I ended up doing, but I shouldn't have cooked. I had too much going on, too much other stuff. Just shows if you don't pay attention, even if it's one meat, that you can have a disastrous cook.
That's why I've always passed on those rib burns, because I always feel like I have enough crap going on Friday night trying to get everything ready that I'm not going to have a very good setup to begin with.
Yeah. I hadn't cooked since first weekend in April, so I thought it would be a good idea to kind of get in the groove. Otherwise, I normally don't do anything extra myself.
Brian sent you a thing of questions, right?
Say that again, Bradley.
I said Brian sent you over a list of things he wanted you to talk about, right?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Hold on, I'm paying attention. I got a whole bunch of bikes driving by me here, so bear with me.
I'm driving myself, so. So, Brian, I figured out the live video, so next time, if I can, I'll just start them and add the person.
Well, I guess I can just start talking, and I don't know how easy. I can't see any comments, so I don't know if people have questions, if you'll be able to see them, but I guess one of the things that Brian wanted me to talk about was how I got into competition barbecue. It was something that I had really, I'd watched some of the TV shows, but had never really thought a whole lot about until I jumped into a church competition, and shows you how much I knew about it. There was 2 other guys, and we all cooked all 4 meats. So we cooked 3 briskets, pork, ribs, everything. And when it came to turn-in time, we decided which one was best we were going to turn in. So
that sounds kind of pricey.
Yeah, it was, but it was one of those things. We ended up getting a second place chicken call, and that kind of bit the bug after that, and realized what we had done was pretty foolish, and kind of slowly started to figure out things after that.
Like Carl said last week in Columbia, because the guy got his first call, and he said that puts the hooks in you the first time. Next thing you know, you have a 40-foot toy hauler.
Say that again?
I said Carl at the Columbia contest, because the guy from his first comp got a call, and he said it puts the hooks in. Next time you'll have a 40-foot toy hauler here pretty soon.
Yep. Well, my first season when I started in my first KCBS competition was the American Royal 6 years ago. I decided, I guess, to start at the top. I had a friend that wanted me to cook for a party, and we found out we actually had to compete at that point. So we ended up finishing 61st in ribs, actually, without even having a clue what we were doing. So
that's not bad at all.
But my first real competition I did, where I thought I knew what I was doing, we won People's Choice, which was $1,000 cash, and got a chicken call. I think it was 7th and chicken in St. Joe. So we're definitely ready. Didn't get any calls till the end of the season after that. It was kind of a humbling deal, but it definitely makes you want to go back for more.
So Brian just said, what did you start cooking on what did you start cooking on, and why drums now?
When I started, I had, and I still have it, I have a pellet cooker, a Cook Shack PG 500, which is a pretty high-end pellet cooker. It kind of cooks like a convection oven. And I hauled that on a little landscape trailer. I had to center it perfectly because the thing is so heavy. And then I had a rectangle, which I don't even know if they make rectangles anymore. It's basically a drum, but it is rectangle, and it's the size a full pan will fit on it. They are heavy duty. Ripplemeyer, I can't remember his first name, out of St. Louis, makes them. And that's what I started cooking on. I love the rectangles. I wanted to buy more, but at the time they were so far out on making more of them that I had the opportunity to go cook with somebody over in St. Louis and shadow him, and he had Huntsakers at the time. And like what I saw the Huntsakers, I saw how well they cooked, and bought 2 used ones. And then I bought a new one from Mark Hunsaker out of Columbia, and that's what I learned how to cook on, and it worked well. I only had 3 my first, actually I didn't get my 3 Hunsakers until my second season. So
now
there was juggling meats between the smokers and everything. But
how do you cook on 3 drums? Do you have a brisket or pork come off early to put on your chicken?
Yeah, you really have to start those real early. I didn't have a Cambro back then, so I just used a cooler with towels is what I did. And actually, before I even had my 3rd one, I would put my pork on the bottom rack and then brisket on the top rack, and halfway through I would flip them. It was quite entertaining to watch, I can assure you, by all my neighbors. But yeah, you get those done early, then you can cook your ribs and your chicken. I've seen guys do it. I mean, it can be done. It's cooking on drums is enough work. I decided just to get 4 to make it easier.
That's what most of the comp cooks now I've seen on have 4 drums.
Yeah.
So Brian just asked, who is your biggest mentor in barbecue?
Oh, I thought about this one because he mentioned it. You know, I don't know if I'd necessarily have a mentor, because I think of a mentor as somebody who I work with all the time, or I talk to all the time, that, you know, and seek advice. And there's so many people that I talk to. Probably the person who really helped me when I started out, Randall Updike, a fraternity brother of mine that cooks with Smoke and Elvis's. He's been doing this, I mean, long before I even thought about doing barbecue. He helped me out early on. A lot of good suggestions and advice. And then Eric Burkhart, Bubba's somebody that helped me out early on. I took his class. He's always somebody that's there to answer questions. But really, as far as a mentor, it seems like I talk to all kinds of people, just having conversations with them about barbecue and who's doing what. If I'm struggling with something, I talk to Nick Davis with Double Barrel Barbecue quite a bit. We share, you know, ideas. You know, I don't know if it's necessarily a mentor. It's just more talking to people and friends and finding different techniques if you're struggling on something.
One thing I've learned, it seems like nobody, as long as you reach out to somebody and are humble about it, they will give you as many pointers as you want. And that's one thing I do like about competition barbecue.
I agree. Before last year, ribs was always my nemesis. I just could not. I always called it the forgotten meat. It got lost in the middle of everything I was doing because you do so much with the other meats at that time. I ended up reaching out to Brian with Meet Me in St. Louis because they finished in the top 20 KCBS the year before, and I'd met him. Nice guy, and I just shot him a message, said, hey, I've got questions. Don't expect recipes, but can you help me? And he just said, yeah, call me. And I think we talked for an hour and a half on the phone. Just process, technique, what I was doing, what he was doing. And just that alone made me think about things differently. And my scores, that was my biggest improvement last year, was in ribs. I think my scores went up almost 9 points, which that shows you how bad my ribs were. But I ended up getting several calls last year in ribs, and now I don't know what happened this past weekend, but yeah, you're right. I think you can talk to anybody as long as you don't go in, and you should never expect anybody to share their quote unquote secrets. But if you're just asking simple, it could be one simple step or process that could totally change how you do something. And that's usually what it is. It's one or two little things that, or it's just reviewing it. You're like, oh, I keep forgetting about that. You make a note of it, and then it makes it easier going forward.
So Brian just asked, what is your preference on meat selections and why?
Well, with chicken is something that I have always, since when I started, I have always used Smart Chicken. And reason for that, one, in Kansas City, it's very prevalent, very easy to find because it's from Nebraska. It's in every Price Chopper and Hy-Vee store in Kansas City. I know there's other areas where it's harder to find, but I just know it looks a lot better than Tyson and some of that other stuff out there you see in the store. It doesn't have the yellow fat and everything. It's always been good-looking stuff. It doesn't seem like it's scrawny or nasty looking. So, and I've had the good luck with Smart Chicken. So I always start there. the last several years, even before Prairie Fresh moved into kind of taking over what I call the pork market for KCBS, I was using Prairie Fresh before that, just because my Price Chopper locally, my grocery store stocked it, and I've had great luck with Prairie Fresh, both pork and ribs. The marbling is great with Prairie Fresh. I seem to find thicker ribs, and that helps as well. And the nice part is now that they're really you can find them at any of the barbecue supply stores in Kansas City. Most grocery stores actually carry some pretty nice Prairie Fresh products as well.
Hell, I find naturals at Walmart that are really good.
Yeah, I think, and like most grocery store chains, I think they vary by region. I haven't had the best luck at the Walmarts near me, but I'm probably like everybody else. If I'm in a grocery store, I wander over to the meat section and I check out what's there just in case it's something I want to take home. Now briskets, I've probably cooked everything. I did cook for several years. It's a type of Wagyu called Akaushi, and it's from some friends of mine that own a butcher shop in Kansas City. Great marbling. I had good luck with it. I had some good calls. This year I moved. I started cooking. I've had 3 comps and I've cooked 3 different types of briskets. Some of that is due to what was available at the time. I cooked a Snake River Farms Gold. I liked what I had. It worked well. In Altoona, I cooked an A9, and that was the first time I'd cooked an A9, and that was due to friends of mine, barbecue bus. They had one, and they said, "Hey, it's trim. Do you want it?" And I said, "Yeah, any day I'll take a trim brisket by a team that finished number 2 in the country in brisket." So I had good luck with that. I did get a call with that. This comp here in Sulphur this weekend, I cooked a Marble Ridge. Again, all these briskets are high-end Wagyu. They're very well marbled. And Marble Ridge, the way I understand it, Tim Shear with who's owner in Blues Hog, he's actually raising his. I'm still here.
Yeah.
My bracket just doesn't want to hold up. There I am. So Tim Shear actually raises his own cattle, and he's getting these briskets. So he's controlling everything with the briskets. My lack of score today was not due to Marble Ridge's fault. It was my fault. So, so I guess when it comes to brisket, I don't necessarily have where I have to use one or another. I haven't really found one that I'm in love with yet. If I have to stick with one, it's probably going to be Snake River, due to the quality that I seem to find, and it's readily available. I can find it anywhere in Kansas City.
So Brian just asked, what makes you decide certain events over others?
First preference for me, if I can find something around Kansas City, obviously, that is a benefit. But I'm going to look at payout, overall payout, because it is quite expensive, obviously, to do these competitions when you add everything up. And
yes, it is.
If for me, if it's under a $10,000 payout, I'll be honest with you, and I know there's probably maybe some organizers on here. I tend to shy away from anything that's not at least a minimum $10,000 payout. I'll fully admit we don't make money on this, but I have to have the ability to try and recoup some of my money that I've spent. So overall payout's part of it, but then also how that's dispersed. Um, I don't know. I like to see top 10 paid out. However it's spread out, but at least if top 10's paid out, you're going to get something. You feel like you get it. Um, Now I've done a few down in Oklahoma, which so for Oklahoma, I mean, it's going to be a total of 7-hour drive home for me. That's not exactly close, but I do travel for work, and Oklahoma is part of my territory. So I was in Oklahoma City all week. So I just said, okay, I'll drive an hour and a half south after I get done on Friday. So I will coordinate a barbecue trip with if I'm working in the area. So that helps out for me.
Do you do any non-sanctioned, or are they all sanctioned now?
I have not done a non-sanctioned since the first competition I did before I got into this. At this point, and I don't consider myself, I haven't even had my first GC yet, so I don't consider myself a top team or top contender, but I just feel like I've done, I think, 31 competitions now. For me to go into a non-sanctioned competition, and if I end up twofold, if I end up winning it, I'm going to look like the jerk that came in and beat everybody. Although I will say there's pretty darn good cooks that do non-sanctioned competitions. But then also, if I go in there and I don't win, it's not going to look good. But the biggest reason is for as much heartache as we all give KCBS for judging and stuff like that, at least KCBS has an organized set of description and how stuff is judged and how they work to it. You go to a non-sanctioned comp, it could be, people are going to judge however they want. There's no set of rules. There's no, rhyme or reason necessarily on how people are going to score you. So it's kind of a crapshoot. It's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I decided I was going to break my own rule and enter a non-sanctioned one, but it's 10 minutes from my house, so I had to. And it's going to be run by a KCBS team, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
But yeah. It's pork steak, wings, and ribs, so give it a try. So Brian asked, any tips for the up-and-coming rookies just starting out? Let me adjust my headset here.
Change my headset there. Up-and-coming rookie coming in. First thing I'd say is, go to some competitions, whether it's backyard or master series, walk around, get to know people and ask questions. There's a lot of people that say, oh, go out and take a class. I do not think, as much as classes cost, and there's varying, levels from a $300 class to a, $1,000 class. I think you need to have a basic idea of what you're doing before you go take a class. I firmly believe you should get to, maybe join something like the Barbecue League where it's only $100. Watch some videos. There's tons of stuff on YouTube. Get to know some other, some cooks, ask questions, kind of know what you're getting into. And maybe after you do 2 or 3 competitions, then find a class and take a class. Because if you go into a class and you're green to it and you don't even know what a turn-in box looks like, it's really not going to do you that much good. It's going to be information overload.
I would completely agree. I took my first class before I did a competition, and I regret it. I learned a lot, but now I'm trying to remember stuff from the class that didn't sink in because I hadn't been there yet.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I should go take another class just now that I've done it. That way I can. Hopefully it'll make more sense. That brings us to the next. Any tips on boxing? Any tips on boxes or cooking?
Wow, that could go all over the place. I the biggest thing that I've hated the most in doing a competition is making boxes. I've always despised it until now. I took a class this past year, and I saw a new technique on doing boxes. I can now do 4 boxes in like less than 10 minutes. It's basically taking chopped kale and chopping it up finer and putting it in the box. Very simple. My appearance scores have not changed from doing that, from when I used to sit there and do tedious parsley and everything. So as far as cooking, I guess the only thing I could say, know your cooker. It really does not matter what you cook on. I think you cook on homemade drums, Brad.
I do.
You know, I cook on Huntsakers. I have friends that cook on Gateways. I know people cook on pellet cookers, you know, Outlaws. As long as you know how your smoker works and you can react to it in various weather conditions, you're going to be fine. Just because you go spend $5,000 on a smoker doesn't mean you're going to do any better than somebody that has a homemade drum that cost them $300 to make. Now there are different advantages with certain things, but if you understand your cooker and you can control it and it works the way you want it to, you'll be just fine.
My biggest challenge right now is my red rib drum likes to jump all of a sudden from 275 to 325, 350 for no reason at all. And I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, that. Anytime a smoker does that, it has to do something where with air intake, you're getting more air in at some point, and that's the only thing that I could think of.
That's what I'm racking my brain. I'd like to switch over to Huntsakers in a couple of years, but we'll see how it goes. So, next question. Do you think the KC Chiefs will win it all this year, or are you sticking with your Steelers?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to say that again. I still got all kinds of feedback in my ears here.
Do you think the Chiefs will win it all this year, or are you sticking with your Steelers?
I don't know who asked that foolish question. The Chiefs aren't going to win it all. I despise the Chiefs. And Brian knows that. Brian probably asked that question.
It was Brian.
Yeah. No, I'm sticking with my Steelers, but I'm afraid I'm happy with Kenny Pickett as our pick, but it's going to take him a little bit. Trubisky, I'm not sold on him. I'm afraid we're going to have some Bubby Brister years for a few years, unfortunately. So
I liked the Pickett pick. I thought that was a pretty good pick for him.
You froze up there, Brad.
I said I liked the Pickett pick. I thought that was pretty good for him. All right. Let's see.
I'm losing you.
What is your favorite meat to cook?
Favorite meat to cook? Oh, well, I've actually, and I know a lot of people, I've always been partial to chicken. I actually have never. Once I learned how to trim chicken, I've never really minded it. Even when I used to take the fat off every skin, I got into a rhythm and I had no problems. And up until last year, actually, chicken was my highest percentage of calls in a competition. It's just something that I had some. Last year I had a little, I don't know, I tried changing my recipe too many times on chicken in the middle of the season when I shouldn't have. I didn't follow my own advice, but chicken has been one that I seem to always do well in. I mean, my scores are always fairly consistent. So I guess it's probably, which is funny because when I go to a barbecue restaurant, I never order chicken. I just don't want it.
That's my go-to in a barbecue restaurant. No, chicken I've realized is once you kind of figure it out, it's really not that bad. Everyone complains about it, but I'm still fighting the tenderness game on chicken, but
Yeah, and chicken, I know in a competition, if you look, the scores always seem higher on chicken in a competition. And I think that's because it's the first meat that the timeline is so short compared to the others. Everything else is probably in a Cambro, and it's just a fire, fire, fire. So everybody's focused on it so much. So that's always been my theory why the scores are higher on chicken. I mean, I finished eighth, and I had a 173, which I mean the field there's 25 teams down in Sulphur, and I'm really, this is one thing I'm really perplexed on why there are only 25 teams. I mean, this is a $10,000 payout. It's well run. I was impressed. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of other competitions going on in the Midwest this weekend, and we had Brad Laniger, I had Kelly Wirtz, who got GC. Congratulations, with a 707, I think. Kelly was awesome this weekend. Travis Clark, who RGC'd. Wait, shit, I can't even think of it. Wait. I mean, we had some of the best cooks in the country that were there this weekend, but yet, I really thought if I didn't have a 175, I mean, we figured that was going to be 10th place. I had a 173, and that was in there. But typically, I think it was Olathe, a 173 was like almost 20th place this year out of 71 teams. I mean, if you believe that or not. So that's why chicken scores always seem to be higher, in my opinion.
well, I think judges too, being the first meat, at least in my opinion, with it, I was always more hungry for chicken, so I scored it higher, which sounds kind of funny, but by brisket, I think I scored a little pickier because I was getting full.
That makes sense.
And what's your least favorite meat?
I guess question for you, Brad.
What's that?
You've taken some classes. What do you look for when you take a class?
Honestly, best. This is gonna sound bad, but best bang for your buck, and B, someone that's done well fairly recently. Because I don't want to sound bad, but I think some cooks have to update their processes, and also some of it too is how I think how they are as a cook and their ability to teach it. Because I myself, I can cook. I mean, it's kind of how I am at school too. I am not a very good teacher. I can do stuff, but teaching it is not my strong suit. I've thought about taking Fergalicious class just because I've heard about how good of a presenter / teacher he is. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, somebody can be a great cook, but if you can't present it to you well or get the whole process across, it really doesn't do much good.
Yes.
I mean, and I will say, Richard, he was a teacher, at one point and everything, so he's got that forte. I took a class of his once, and I learned a lot.
The three I've thought about doing here recently, that is, if you don't do another one of these days, is either Fergalicious, Slaps, or Travis Clark's. But Clark cooks on a Jambo, so I don't know how that's another thing too. A class on a similar type of cooker would also be in the criteria, because I worry about him cooking on a Jambo, how that would relate to drums.
I'm losing you, Brad.
Can you hear me now?
You're cutting in and out.
I also said type of cooker would be a criteria too. Similar type of cooker.
I early on, I would agree. When you're starting out, I think somebody should gravitate to something they cook on initially. But now, I mean, so the class I took this last year was Joe Pierce's class.
That's
Joe
on my
Pierce
list.
does nothing to do with trash cans like I do. I was going there purely for finding some steps that would and this is something that I learned from Bubba, and I still to this day, every time I look at what I do, like I will evaluate what I did this weekend. The whole idea is, how do I go from say 15 steps to 10? If you can shorten the amount of steps you have in a process, and this is anything in life as far as I'm concerned, you will reduce your chances of mistakes. And that's purely what I went to Joe's class for. I went to, well, obviously he's freaking phenomenal cook. But and I don't remember what it was now. I was telling the story to somebody yesterday that I think within the first hour of Joe's class, I was like, holy crap. And he's like, what? And I said, the money I just spent on this class, if I learned nothing else, this was worth it. And it was just, I remember I made a big old note, and it's you just go to find little things after you understand what competition barbecue is and the process. You find little ways to improve your steps, how to look at it, because when it comes down to flavor profile, you can get that from other people, but how Joe cooks on his outlaw, flavors will come out different on my cans. I've noticed that because I tried replicating one of his recipes, and I'm like, that didn't come out looking or tasting anything like it did on his, because it's more of a concentrated cook on a can. So you can't fully replicate, but the little steps here and there, and then now I'm tweaking those to make sure they work properly on the can. So.
Yep, slaps is definitely on my radar for possibly next class. Like I said, I've thought of slaps, Travis Clark's, or Fergalicious. They're the three I've thought about. All right. Trying to see if there's any more questions. Does anybody else have any questions for him?
Is there anything else?
I'm trying to see. I'm trying to think if I have anything off the top of my head. No. You're talking about getting calls or whatever. I increased my chicken score 7 or 9 points from the Royal to my Columbia contest. But the guy that won it got a 180, and everybody else was like 178, 170. It was right in there on chicken. So I've learned I got to up my chicken score to even think about walking one of these days. So when's your next competition class?
So my next competition, I was drawn for that Made for KC competition. I call it the airport competition.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that one?
Yep, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, so that's, and I don't know how many people are aware. Of course, there's only three people, 3,000 people on here.
We dwindled down.
Yeah. So that competition, the new Kansas City airport that's being built, some of the conditions on that airport was, one, it had to be local contractors. So it is all contractors from Kansas, but also the restaurants and the shops have to have a local connection. So since Kansas City has the world's largest barbecue competition, they are going to have a competition-style barbecue restaurant. So to qualify, you had to live within 60 miles of the airport, and you had to be cooked at least, I think, 3 KCBS comps in the past couple of years. They had been good standing. And then they literally, I think there was 49 or 50 teams that applied, and they drew out 36 names in a Facebook Live event. And I was lucky enough to get drawn. It's going to be the second weekend in June, up by the airport at the Worth Harley-Davidson dealership parking lot. And it's a total $46,000 payout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now it's top heavy. They only pay the top 5, but GC gets $35,000, I think. But the cool part is whoever wins the GC lands a contract with the new restaurant at the airport. Don't have to run it, but they help develop the recipes and everything for the restaurant, and their image and team and stuff will be all over that restaurant until they have whoever wins the GC at next year's comp. So it's going to be a theme every single year. They're going to have that. So it could be, that could be, yeah. I mean, you get 1% of all restaurant sales. That could be some pretty big cash right there.
Especially if you just are developing recipes and not have to do the day-to-day stuff. That's.
Oh yeah, I mean, I couldn't run a restaurant and do my day job. I'm busy enough as it is. So
this is a question I kind of was thinking about too that Ryan just asked. What's the secret to getting sponsors, and which sponsors would be best? Coal, wood, meat, money, etc.
Yes to all those. They'd all be good.
I'm trying to go through that myself, trying to get some sponsors.
So sponsors, here's the deal. And I've been fortunate. I have several sponsors. You have to look at sponsors this way. One, what do you have to offer, and what are you willing to do for what you're going to get? And you can't think of they're all going to be, here's a check for some money. I mean, I tout Smart Chicken as a sponsor. Does Smart Chicken probably know who I am? No. But you know how I got them? One day, my second year, I wrote a letter to them, said, hey, this is who I am. Last year, I got 3 calls using your chicken. I didn't know if you had any programs. And oh, by the way, go Big Red, because I was from Nebraska. I think they sent me like $50 in coupons for chicken. So, hey, it saved me on a cost. And every year since then, same thing. Pedialyte. It's funny. After I won pork at the American Royal, Brian kept giving me a hard time that I should write Pedialyte because I drink Pedialyte Sport at competitions to keep me hydrated. And I'm like, whatever. Well, I shot him an email. They responded like the same day, said, well, we don't do sponsorship. But again, they sent me a whole bunch of coupons. So you got to think of it in this. That was some advice actually Randall Updike gave me when I started. He goes, whatever you're willing to, if somebody's willing to give you a free haircut and that saves you money and you want to throw them out there as a sponsor, go ahead. Most of my sponsors that back me, I have a couple of insurance agents. Matt Gorman, I've known for 20 some years, Kansas Farm Bureau. He's a good friend of mine. American Family Insurance, Jeff Hawker up in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. They're both on different sides of the state line, so not a conflict there, but they're both good friends. My sister-in-law is a real estate agent with RE/MAX in Kansas City, Yvette Lopez, so she sponsors me. She's actually working to set up and do classes for all of her people that help her when they sell houses, the loan officers to the handyman that help do stuff, the bug control and stuff like that, where she's going to have me do classes for those.
Hey guys, I'm going to have to hop off here. Brian, can you take over? Nothing. What? Nothing. I was all right. All right, guys. I'm gonna have to. Are we good now?
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and hop off too. Hopefully,
right.
People thought it was good.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. Bye.